What is up, everybody? This is Dylan with Code Brew. Do you want to add CSS Grid to your tool belt? Well, in this video, we're going to go over an example of how CSS Grid works. So here in Inkscape, I drew a wireframe. So it has a nav bar, a main post, a sidebar, 3 blog posts, and a footer. And we will also scale this to a mobile view once you get down past a certain pixel count. So let's get started. In Visual Studio Code, I have a folder named CSS Grid, an index.html file, and a style.css. So here's the boilerplate HTML. I'm going to quickly run through what I have here. A link to the style.css, and then I also have a link to Montserrat font that I really like from Google Fonts, and I will have this zip folder on a Google Drive for y'all to download. So title CSS Grid. Now going into the body, we have a div with a class container, and within that div we have a nav bar, the main post, sidebar, our 3 blog posts, and the footer. Okay, so now that we've ran through the index.html, let's go over to the style.css and start working with the grid. Okay, so we are going to call the class container, and we're going to say display grid. Save that. So what we can do here is minimize this, and let's get the live server going. Alright, now that we have that adjusted, almost there. Okay, so now that we have that adjusted, let's continue styling. So we have display grid. We're going to give it a height of 100 view height, so it spans the whole height of the container. Next step, we are going to do grid template columns, and let's look at our wireframe really quick. So we are going to style the grid template columns, and if we look here, we will have 1, 2, 3, 4 columns total. So in CSS Grid, what we're going to do is we're going to say 1 FR, and FR is a fractional unit, and 1 FR is 1 part of the available space. So since we want 4, we're going to type 1 FR 4 times. Save that. Now we're going to call grid template rows, and we're going to go back to our wireframe. So here we have a smaller row, and below it is the main post, which is a larger row, covering this third block is covering the post 1, 2, and 3, and the last one is the footer row. Okay, so let's go into the CSS, and we are going to say, since the nav bar is smaller, we're going to say 0.2 FR. We're going to give the main post a row of 1.5 FR, and the post 1, 2, and 3 a 1.2 FR, and then we'll give the footer a 0.7 FR. So now what we can do is let's set up our grid template areas, and this will help us visualize how everything is going to be structured within CSS Grid. So our first area is just going to contain the nav all the way across. Our next row is going to be main, 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 and then sidebar. Now we're going to have the post 1, post 2, post 3, and sidebar, followed by footer, 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 and sidebar. So to internalize this, let's look at our wireframe again. So we can picture it with our layout that we have here in the CSS. So for the top row, we have the nav bar stretching all the way across, and then 3 of the columns is the main, and then we have the last column being the sidebar, and then the 3 posts, and sidebar, and then the footer. Okay. Now what we're going to do is, let's say grid gap, and we're going to set that to 0.3 rem. This is just going to give us some spacing between our containers. Let's do the styling for the font family. That's going to be the Montserrat. And backup sans serif. We'll do a font weight of 900. Let's make it extra bold. Font size, we'll do 25 pixels. Text transform, that's going to be uppercase. And color, we're going to give white. So we can't see it right now, but our font has changed. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start styling the nav, the main, sidebar, and the posts. Okay, so let's go back to the HTML. We have the nav, so let's give it a call and say background color blue. And we're going to say grid area nav. So you can see that this is referencing our grid template area and our nav here. So it's taking up the full width of the window. Let's also say text align center. All right. Now let's, since we have the general understanding of how everything is going to be named, let's add a root, and we're going to say main radius 15 pixels, so this will round out our squares. And we're also going to give main padding, and we're going to put 15 pixels. So this will make the text more readable. Okay, now what we can do is we can add in that border radius, and we're going to call our variable main radius and padding top var main padding. So now we have a radius on the square and a little bit of padding on the top there. So now let's start styling the main section. We'll say background color red, grid area main. So it's starting to come together. And then we'll give it the border radius from the nav. Now let's call, since we have an ID for the sidebar, we'll use the hash sidebar background color RGB we'll give it a dark purple color. Next is the grid area. So looking up here, we gave it a name of sidebar, so sidebar down here, save. Then we're gonna reuse the border radius and padding top. Now, just like the sidebar, we have a ID of post 1. background color, and we're gonna give that light green. Use grid area. We'll say, let's reference again. So we have post 1, 2, and 3, and this one is post 1, post 1. Now we have our post 1. So let's copy this. We'll name it post 2. Change the grid area to 2. And repeat the process for post 3. All right, so we're almost there. All we have to do is add in the footer section. And in the HTML, we have the footer. So footer, background color, and we'll give it a deep blue. Grid area, footer, and then let's get that rounded radius and padding top. Okay, so here's our desktop view. And as you can see, it takes up the entire screen no matter what the width is. So the next step is going to be, if we are viewing this website on a mobile view, let's do a media query. And say max width 600 pixels, and what we're gonna do is call the container. So this div container houses everything: our nav bar, main, sidebar, and post, and footer. And we are going to tell it to display everything in, so the nav bar, main, post, and all of the following items have their own row. And you'll be able to scroll down through each item. So let's say grid template columns 1 FR. And then we're going to say grid template rows. And let's see how many rows we have. So pretend that we're scrolling through this site. So first we'll show the nav bar, the main post, the 3 posts, sidebar, and then lastly the footer. So let's have the nav bar take up 0.4 FR. We'll have the main post take up 2 FR. And the 3 posts, we'll have them take up 1.3 FR. Now the sidebar, we'll make it a little larger at 1.8 FR, and then lastly the footer at 0.6 FR. Okay, so let's call out our grid template areas. So how this is going to look, like I said, we're pretending that we're scrolling through the website, so each item is going to have its own row. So starting off, we have the nav, then the main, post 1, post 2, post 3, and sidebar. Lastly, the footer. Okay, so let's open this up. Let's go to inspect. So we have Google Chrome here. We're inspecting it at a hypothetical iPhone SE. We'll do responsive. As soon as it breaks above the width of 600, it's going to switch to the desktop view. And once we get down to below 600, it's going to go to the mobile view. Hopefully this video helped. Please smash the like button. Let me know what you liked about this video and any suggestions that you have for future videos. Thank you so much.